I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of truck guys uncomfortable. Your truck might be the most expensive mistake of your financial life. Not because trucks are bad, not because wanting one makes you irresponsible, but because the way most people buy them and the way they think about them is specifically designed to keep money out of your pocket and into someone else. And if nobody ever walked you through this, you're leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table. So in this video, here's exactly what we're covering. Number 1, how to know if your truck is actually making you broke. Number 2, who set this trap and how the whole system is designed to keep you in it. And number 3, how to stop being broke while still keeping the lifestyle you work hard for. Let's get into it. Every tool in here has a job. A hammer drives nail. A wrench turns bolts. A socket set breaks loose a bolt that's been stuck for 10 years. Every single thing in this box was built to do something specific. And when you use the right tool for the right job, everything works the way it's supposed to. Now I want you to think about something. What happens when you go out and spend $400 on a titanium professional grade hammer, the kind of professional framing crews use to build houses, but all you ever to do with is hang picture frames in your living room? It's not that the hammer is bad. It's actually an incredible hammer, built tough, built to last, built to handle serious work, but the cost does not match the use. You're paying a professional rate for a weekend hobby, and that gap right there between what you paid for and what you are actually using it for, that is the entire pavement princess problem in a nutshell. Because here's what I want to be really clear about before we go any further. This conversation has never been about whether trucks are good or bad. It has never been about judging what you drive or making you feel stupid for what you bought. That's not what this is. It's about one thing and one thing only. This mismatch between what you paid for and what you're actually doing with it. That's it. That's the whole thing. And once you see that mismatch clearly, once you really sit with it and look at it honestly, you can't unsee it. It changes the way you think about every purchase you make going forward. So let's talk about what a pavement princess actually is, and more importantly, what's actually costing you. Most people heard the term pavement princess and think it's just a job. Like it is something guys say when they're busting each other's chops about keeping a clean truck. And yeah, on the surface, that's what it looks like. A truck that never sees dirt, never hauls anything, never does the job it was built for. Clean bed, factory paint, maybe a lift kit that's never cleared anything taller than a speed bump. And look, that image is funny, I get it. But what if that level is actually something bigger than a punchline? What if it's not just a joke about a clean track? What if it's actually financial diagnosis? Because here's the definition that actually matters. Not the only guys throw around on job sites, the only that affects your bank account. A pavement princess is anyone who is paying a work vehicle price for a lifestyle vehicle and has not consciously decided that's okay. It's not about the truck being clean. It's not about whether you have got mud on the tires. It's about the financial behavior underneath a clean paint. You can love your truck. You can want a beautiful truck. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But there's a massive difference between choosing that intentionally, with full awareness of what it costs, and just sleepwalking into it, because that's what everybody around you does. And to figure out which one you're doing, I want you to ask 3 honest questions right now. What did you haul last month? Not what you could have hauled. What did you actually haul? What did you tow last year? Boat, trailer, equipment, anything. What was it and how many times? And here's the big one. Could a $28,000 used truck have done 90% of what your current truck did? Be honest with yourself. Now listen, the answer to those questions does not require you to do anything right now. I'm not telling you to go sell your truck tomorrow. I'm just asking you to be honest, because honesty is the only place this conversation can actually start. But here's where it gets important. This isn't a truck problem. The truck is just where the pattern shows up most expensively. It's a pattern of buying for image, buying for identity, buying because it's just people around you do, without ever stopping to run the actual numbers. The truck is just the most expensive version of the pattern, and that's why we are starting here, the psychological trap. Here is something I want you to really sit with for a second. Nobody just wakes up one day and decides to overpay for a depreciating asset. That does not happen. So how does it happen? Because I promise you, here are a lot of people who got very, very rich designing the exact path that led you to that dealership. And once you see how the path was built, everything starts to make sense. Let's start with identity. In a lot of communities, constructions, agriculture, trades, rural America, your truck is your handshake. It tells people who you are before you ever open your mouth. Hardworking, self-sufficient, capable, ready for whatever comes next. That's a powerful thing to communicate. And that's absolutely not an accident. That's a brand position that took decades and billions of dollars in advertising to build and maintain. Because here's what happened. Truck manufacturers made a very deliberate pivot in the 1990s and in 2000s. Trucks stopped being marketed as tools and started being marketed as aspirational lifestyle products. The F-150 became built for tough, not just because of the engineering, but because of what the phrase does to a man's sense of identity. It makes buying the truck feel like a statement about who you are, and that changed everything. When a product becomes part of how you see yourself, price sensitivity disappears. You don't negotiate on your identity. You don't downgrade your identity. You upgrade it every single time. And the manufacturers know exactly how to push that further. Look at how trim levels work. They make a base model that's genuinely functional. It does the job. And then they make it just uncomfortable enough that upgrading feels like a necessity. No heated seats in winter. A basic radio that feels outdated the moment you sit in it. Cloth seats that feel like a step down from what you deserve. It's not an accident. It's designed to make the next trim level feel like the reasonable choice. Then layer on the top of what their social proof is. When everyone on your job site, in your neighborhood, in your friend group is driving a lifted F-2050, driving something sensible suddenly feels like a statement you're not ready to make. The social cost of the wrong truck is real. People feel it. And the industry has known that for a long time. Now, I'm not saying any of this to make you feel manipulated or embarrassed. These are incredibly powerful forces. Being aware of them does not make you immune to them, but it does mean you can start making conscious choices instead of continued ones. So now you know the psychology, you know what you wanted, and you know why they made it so easy to say yes. But here is where it gets really interesting because the psychology trap is just the front door. The real trap is what happens once you walk in, and it starts the moment you sit down across from a finance manager. The single most important thing I can tell you is about buying a car or a truck is this. The moment the conversation shifts from what does this truck cost to what can you afford per month, you have already lost the negotiation. Full stop. Because here's what a dealer can do when you're focused on a monthly payment. They can keep your payment right at a comfortable number. Let's say $750 a month while quietly extending the loan term, raising the price of the truck, and building in fees you never even notice. And you won't catch it because the monthly number didn't change. That is the trick. Now let's talk about how dealer profit actually works because most people have no idea. This is the front end profit. That is the markup on the vehicle price itself. And there is a back end profit. That is where the dealer gets a cut of the interest rate they sell you on financing. The higher the rate, the more they make. And then there's the add-ons, extended warranties, gap insurance, paint protection packages. Each one sounds small and reasonable when it's presented to you. Each one adds up fast. A dealer can walk away making $8,000 to $12,000 in a single truck transaction, and the buyer leaves feeling like they got a great deal because they talked them down a little on the sticker price. Here is another one that most people never see coming. Long-term creep. In 2009, the average auto loan was 60 months. Today, it regularly hits 72 and even 84 months. And the reason is simple. Longer terms keep the monthly payment artificially low while the price of the vehicle keeps climbing. A $70,000 truck at 84 months and 7% interest does not cost you $70,000. It costs you over $90,000 by the time you're done paying. Most people have genuinely no idea. And then there's a trade-in trap. The average person trades their vehicle every 3 to 4 years. On a 72-month loan, that means they almost never reach positive equity before the trade. So they roll the remaining balance into a new loan, already $5,000 to $8,000 in a hole before they have driven off the lot. Dealerships are businesses. They are not doing their job. Your job is to know how they operate. So you have got the psychology working against you, and you have got the financial mechanics working against you. But there's one more thing that most people completely overlook, and it's happening in the background, quietly while you're focused on making your payment every month. Depreciation. Now everybody knows vehicles lose value. That's not a secret. But most people dramatically underestimate how fast it happens and how much it actually costs them. So let's put some real numbers on it. A new truck loses roughly 15 to 20% of its value in the first year alone. By year 3, it's typically worth 40 to 50% of what you ordinarily paid for it. So on a $70,000 truck, that is $28,000 to $35,000 in lost value in 3 years. That's not a payment. That money is just gone, vanished. It does not come back. But here is where it gets really important. And this is the part most people never connect. The same $35,000, if it were invested instead of evaporating through depreciation at a 7% average annual return over 20 years, becomes roughly $135,000. So the real cost of that depreciation is not just $35,000 you lost. It's the $135,000 you never got to build. That is the number that should make you stop and think. Oh, here is the good news. Because there is a sweet spot in all of this, and smart buyers have known about it for a long time. The depreciation curve flattens out significantly after years 3 to 5. What that means is someone else already took the big hit on value loss. You come in and buy the truck at the bottom of the curve, and you got most of the useful life of that vehicle at a fraction of what it originally cost. That is how you win the truck game without giving up the truck. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but trucks hold their value. And look, there is some truth to that, especially compared to cars. But a lot of people are holding on to that idea based on what happened during the pandemic, when used car and truck price went temporarily through the roof because of the supply chain issues and inventory shortage. That was an anomaly, a 2-year window that has already started correcting itself. Building your entire financial strategy around a 2-year anomaly is not a plan. It's a hop. The depreciation curve is real, the math is real, and it's working against you every single day that truck sits in your driveway. The credit score connection. Now here is something that almost nobody connects to the truck, and it might be the most quietly damaging part of this whole thing. Because while your truck is losing value in the driveway, it might also be doing damage somewhere you can't even see. Let's talk about debt to income ratio. And I'm going to keep this simple because it does not need to be complicated. When you go to borrow money for a house, for a business, for anything, lenders don't just look at your credit score. They look at how much of your monthly income is already committed to debt payments. The ratio is your debt to income. And a $754 truck payment on a $55,000 salary is already consuming a massive chunk of that ratio, because you have paid a single other bill before rent, before student loans, before a credit card, before anything. And here is where it gets really concrete. If your dream is to buy a house in the next few years, and for a lot of people watching this, it is, your truck payment might be the exact reason a lender says no, or the reason they offer you a higher interest rate, or the reason you qualify for significantly less house than you actually need. This is not hypothetical. This happens to real people every single day, and most of them never connected back to the truck sitting in their driveway. There is also the credit inquiry piece. Every time you finance a vehicle, it triggers a hard inquiry on your credit report. And if you are in that trading cycle every 3 to 4 years, which we already established most people are, you are regularly dinging your score and resetting your loan history. Length of credit history matters to lenders, and constantly opening new auto loans works directly against you building that history. Now let me introduce you to a term, truck poor. You can have a solid income, you can have a decent credit score, and you can still be completely unable to make any real financial progress because your single biggest monthly obligation is sitting in the driveway losing value. The truck is not just costing you the payment, it's costing you the mortgage you can't qualify for, the investment account you never opened, the business you kept saying you would start someday. Let me put a real scenario in front of you. 28 years old, $68,000 a year income, $780 truck payment, $290 a month on insurance, $380 a month on fuel and maintenance. That is $1,450 a month in a vehicle costs alone. Their debt to income is already compromised before rent, before food, before a single other debt payment. Now watch what happens to the financial picture when total vehicle costs drop to $600 a month. That is $850 freed up every single month. That's the mortgage approval. That's the real investment account. That's the business, the true cost calculation. So we have talked about the psychology, the dealer mechanics, the depreciation, the credit impact. And maybe right now you're sitting there doing the math in your head. I'm starting to realize this is bigger than you thought. Good, because now we are going to get really specific. Because here's the thing, most people budget for the truck payment. That's it. The payment, and they think that's the cost of their truck. But the payment is not the cost of your truck. Not even close. Let me walk you through what your truck is actually costing you every single month. First, there's the payment. Let's use a $65,000 as our example. That's not even top of the market anymore. That is pretty average for a well-equipped new truck today. At a typical loan term and interest rate, you're looking at around $754 a month just in payments. Then there is insurance. On a new truck, especially with full coverage, you're realistically looking at around $280 a month. Fuel. If you're driving a full-size truck with a V8 or a diesel, $350 a month is not an exaggeration, especially with today's gas prices. Maintenance and repairs, oil changes, tires, brakes, fluids, average out over the year, budget around $120 a month. Registration and taxes, people forget this one constantly. Averaged out monthly, that's roughly $150. And then there's a depreciation. Remember what we just talked about. A truck losing $8,400 a year in value works out to $700 a month. That money is leaving your pocket every single month, whether you write a check for it or not. And all of that up, $754 plus $280 plus $350 plus $120 plus $150 plus $700. You're looking at roughly $2,354 a month. That is what your truck actually costs. Now let's apply a simple financial guideline that's been around forever. Most financial experts recommend keeping your total vehicle costs under 15 to 20% of your take-home pay. To make $2,354 a month in vehicle costs responsible by that standard, you would need to be taking home somewhere $11,700 and $15,700 a month. That is $140,000 to $188,000 a year in take-home pay. Let that number land for a second. I want you to actually pause this video right now and run this calculation on your own track. You need 5 numbers: your payment, your insurance, your average fuel cost, your average maintenance cost, and your registration average monthly. Add those up, that's your number. Keep depreciation in mind on the top of that. That total compared to what a right-size vehicle would cost you, that gap is your freedom number. That is not just money, that's what financial freedom actually looks like in monthly form, the exit strategy. Now here's the part I actually love, because once you know your freedom number, you go to decide what to do with it. And that decision, that single decision, is where everything changes. But first I want to acknowledge something. Getting out of a bad vehicle situation feels complicated. It feels like there are 100 moving parts and you don't know where to grab first. And because of that, a lot of people just stay stuck. They know the numbers don't work. They know it's costing them, and they do nothing because doing something feels overwhelming. That is completely normal, and I'm going to make it simple. There are 3 scenarios you might be in right now, and each one has a clear path forward. Scenario A: you have equity. You owe less on your truck than it's currently worth. This is the best position to be in, and if this is you, you have a clean way out. Sell the truck privately, not to a dealership, privately. Pocket the difference between what you get and what you owe, and use that as a down payment on something sensible. To figure out where you stand, pull up your lender's app or call them and get your exact payoff amount. Then check your truck's current market value on something like KBB or CarGurus. And if the market value is higher than a payoff, you have equity. That is your green light. Scenario B: you're slightly upside down. You owe a little more than the truck is currently worth. You have got a few options here. You can start making aggressive extra payments toward the principal to close the gap as fast as possible. Then sell once you reach equity. You can sell privately and cover the small remaining gap out of your own pocket to get out clean. What you don't want to do is roll that negative equity into a new loan. That just makes the hole deeper and you're back at square one. Actually worse than square one, because now you're starting a new loan already underwater. Scenario C: you're deeply upside down. I'm going to be straight with you here because it's more useful than sugarcoating it. If you owe significantly more than the truck is worth, your options are more limited, but they are not zero. You can stay in the vehicle and make aggressive extra payments toward the principal every single month to get yourself to equity as fast as possible. If your credit allows, you can look at refinancing for a low interest rate to reduce what you're paying in interest while you work down the balance. And if the situation is served enough, talking to a financial advisor about your specific options is genuinely worth the time. Now, when you're ready to find the right replacement, here's what you're looking for: a truck that's 3 to 5 years old. Someone else already took the depreciation hit. Look for a reliable make and model with strong ownership cost data. And do the research before you fall in love with something on a lot. Buy privately if you can, do avoid dealer markup. And make sure the total cost of ownership, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance stays under the 50 to 20% of your take-home pay threshold we talked about. And when you do walk into a dealership, one rule: never discuss monthly payments. Negotiate the out-the-door price and nothing else. Get pre-approved for financing through your bank or credit union before you ever set foot on the lot. A single move removes one of the dealer's biggest advantages before the conversation even starts. Because here's the vision I want to leave you with. This isn't about driving a worse truck. This is about freeing up capital to actually build something. That extra $600, $700, $800 a month that you recapture, invested consistently over 5 years, does not just sit there. It works, it compounds, it becomes the down payment on the houses, the emergency fund that means a bad month does not wreck you, the start of the business you have been putting off. That is what right sizing your vehicle actually buys you. Not a lesser life, a freer one. The truck was just one piece of the puzzle. If you want to see the full picture, watch this video next. It's going to show you that smart middle class habits that are quietly keeping you broke. I will see you there.